Hey there. How's it going?
What do you know, Kev?
Not much. This is Jack Burton, Kevin Augsburger, a.k.a. Jack Burton. This is my dad, John.
Glad to be here.
And we're going to talk about the SEC men's basketball season. Just kind of wrapped up today. Everything's good to go. Conference tournament bracket is set. And so we're just going to kind of review the season and talk a little bit about, what the conference tournament holds and what's going to happen maybe in the NCAA tournament for some SEC teams.
Sounds like a winner.
All right. To start off, everything kind of wrapped up today. We had a two-way tie up the top with Kentucky and Texas A&M splitting the regular season title. Texas A&M kind of gets the tiebreaker if you want to really break it down, nuts and bolts, since they beat Kentucky when they played head-to-head. But still, two solid teams at the top of the league.
Very much so. And, I never really look at a big difference between number one, number two. And I think that as you look at the brackets, I think that the Kentucky bracket is actually just a little bit more friendly to ourselves than against A&M. When you look at some of the teams that we have played this year, the teams that we struggled with, they're basically in the top side of the bracket. And you look at the teams that are in our side of the bracket, they're the teams we really did not struggle with this year.
Yeah, I think when you take a look at the entire bracket, it certainly breaks in Kentucky's favor for sure.
No doubt.
With that being said, so let's just kind of real quickly break down the bracket real quick. To start off on Wednesday night, you've got is it Wednesday night? Is it Thursday night?
It should be Wednesday night.
Yeah, Wednesday night. So Wednesday night you get Tennessee against Auburn, which if you're there Wednesday night to watch that one,
that's the Bruce Pearl Bowl, isn't it?
That certainly is. So that's going to be Wednesday night. Thursday night you start to get you get your full slate of games for the day. You get the number 8 seed Florida against number 9 Arkansas. Should be a pretty good matchup. You've got the number 5 seed Vanderbilt following that against the winner of that Tennessee-Auburn game from the night before to cap off the afternoon slate. Then in the evening, you're going to get Ole Miss against Alabama, which should be an interesting game. See how that one shakes out. Ole Miss was the 7 seed and Alabama was the 10 seed. I thought they'd be a little bit higher. I was a little surprised that they weren't quite as high as they probably should have been.
When I look at these teams and you want to see who is really putting a late season surge coming into the tournament time, and there's you probably have Vandy making the biggest surge amongst this group. South Carolina on the bottom side had really started out well, but they kind of limped home as well. There's really, besides Kentucky and A&M, you got to say that the Vandy team probably has about as much momentum coming into it. Mississippi State played better down the stretch, but man, they struggled so hard at certain times of the year. But I would say that A&M, Kentucky, you have Vandy and Mississippi State are probably have as much momentum coming into the tournament as any of these teams. And it's really disappointing to see some of ththese teams just really limp home.
Yeah, and we'll get to a little bit of that here in just a minute when we start giving out our regular season awards. But yeah, you're totally right. There's probably, there are 4 teams from this conference that are probably going to get into the NCAA tournament, maybe 5 if the NCAA committee really wants to push for LSU to get in there for Ben Simmons.
And I think that to reward a team for just a player, I think that the LSU is going to have to go at least 2 deep and probably get to the tournament final to be able to sneak into the big dance.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. So let's keep going through here real quick, and then we'll get to some postseason or some regular season awards. That final match on Thursday pits Georgia, the 6th seed, against Mississippi State, the 11th seed. Ben Howland's got that team playing pretty well right now. They started out, they were terrible when Kentucky played them earlier in the year, and they're actually playing halfway decent now.
And they really are. Ben Howland's a good quality coach. He's got a couple really quality players with Newman and the other freshman that's his running mate. But again, I think that Mark Fox always does a nice job when you get to the tournament, and for somehow, some way, he gets the most out of his kids when it really means something here in the tournament.
Yeah, and let's not forget too. I mean, when we're talking about tournament runs, Bruce Pearl and that Auburn team last year, they had no business at all making it to the final, or they make it to the semis. Right?
Semis, yes.
Yeah, made it to the semis. I mean, that team had no business at all. Right. I mean, they were pretty pitiful all year.
Yeah.
And then you just got them on a run, and they won 3 games.
There's something about
2 games.
There's something about coaches that just know how to get to once they get into a tournament, how to get the most out of their players, and you play that one game at a time. Mm-hmm. And if you can turn up some defensive pressure, rebound really tough, that's a great combination to all of a sudden make a good run.
Yeah,
good defense, good rebounding, and you're going to be solid.
Yep, that's exactly right. So moving on with the teams that actually get the byes. On Friday, you'll have Texas A&M, the number 1 seed, do that tiebreaker over Kentucky. They will play the winner of that 8-9 game between Florida and Arkansas. Mm-hmm. Then later that afternoon, you'll have LSU playing the winner of Vanderbilt and the winner of the first game on Wednesday night. That should be a pretty good game, no matter who wins that one. Then on the first game of the late session, you'll have Kentucky against the winner of Ole Miss and Alabama. Mm-hmm. And after that, you'll cap off the night with South Carolina against the winner of Georgia, Mississippi State. So mm-hmm. it's going to be a good tournament. It certainly seems like it favors Kentucky, even though they're the number 2 seed rather than the number 1. Like you said, everybody on Kentucky's half the bracket they've beaten, and they've beaten handily.
When you look at the SEC bracket and the overall tournament, it's really a microcosm of the NCAA as a whole this year, in that there's really not a dominant team out there. You could have anybody win at any time. I've got to say that A&M and Kentucky probably have the most dominant talent out there. But by the same token, there is not in the top 4 with Vandy that certainly has the talent to make a deep run in the SEC tournament, just so they can lose in the first round of the NCAA tournament again.
Yeah, exactly. So the tournament is going to be a lot of fun. I mean, it's March. Yeah. It's here.
We're not going to be going down to Nashville this year after being there the last couple years. And hey, if you ever get a chance to get to Nashville for the SEC tournament,
do it.
It's just an amazing venue where you have Bridgestone Arena right next to Broadway, and the nighttime entertainment, and even the daytime. If you happen to have an early game and you get out early, it's just amazing the atmosphere on Broadway.
Yeah, it's it's a lot of fun. There's a lot of entertainment districts you can find around the country here, and this is definitely one of the better ones I've ever been to.
No doubt.
It's certainly an atmosphere. Even if you're not a Kentucky fan, if you're just a fan of any of these teams and you want to go watch some good basketball and just have a good time down there, it is a fantastic place to do that.
I know I'm looking down the road, not next year, but the year after, it actually changed venues to St. Louis. And as much as I enjoy St. Louis, no doubt.
Okay, so with that being said, that's kind of just the wrap up of how the tournament breaks down.
Who do you think wins? Takes it all.
Well, let's get to that in a little bit.
Okay,
let's first go back to kind of the regular season, since that just ended today. Let's just do some regular season awards.
Okay.
Let's start off with Coach of the Year, and this can be you're the coach that did the most with the least. Mm-hmm. It can be the coach that exceeded your expectations, or just the coach who performed the best. Billy Kennedy won the Billy Kennedy won the SEC with Texas A&M, so you could say him or Cal deserve it.
Sure, but also those are the two teams with the highest expectations coming into the year. Everybody was pointing to A&M early in the year with the talent that they had coming back. It was a great mixture of freshman talent along with some senior talent, and Billy certainly did a very nice job. Started out really hot, had a big lull right in the middle of the season, losing 4 out of 5 games, and then began to put some things together again towards the end. Took care of Kentucky a week ago in College Station, took care of Vandy today in College Station. So they did what they had to do, and that's win their crucial games at home. For my money, the coach that we really didn't expect to do a lot this year, we've seen here in Kansas with bug-eyed Frank Martin, and he's entertaining. I think the real key with Frank Martin is he did the same thing at K-State. You go along and he has to get the right players that want to play his style. Once people find him and he finds the right players and they match up, I look at him very much like Bobby Knight. Bobby Knight, when you had kids that would run through the wall for him the way he expected, man, he had great teams. But in today's more coddled athletes, they just couldn't handle it. So Frank Martin's done a good job finding those athletes now, and they're believing in what his thought process is and his tough nose approach. And so that's where I would put my vote, would be Frank Martin being the SEC Coach of the Year. I think he did the most with the least. Came out of nowhere and really did a bang-up job.
Yeah, I have to agree with you 100%. Just the expectations before the year, his first 2 years in South Carolina were just abysmal. And he didn't really inherit a lot. So he had a lot of ground to make up, which he finally started to. Like you said, he finally got players that wanted to play for him, wanted to play for his system. He is cut from the same cloth as Bobby Knight. He's hard-nosed. It's his way or the highway. And you've got to want to play for him. But his players, he really cares about the kids that play for him. And those kids will run through a wall for him. Once he got his guys, I never believed when they started the SEC season they would be undefeated. That was a complete shock to me this year. And the way that they've actually handled their business, finishing basically third in the SEC. They dropped some games that were kind of head scratchers, but for the most part, that team totally exceeded expectations, and I think he did a fantastic job.
Would agree.
So going from Frank Martin, our Coach of the Year, what would you say is the most improved team? Because that's kind of the same thing here. I would definitely say the most improved team in the SEC this year over last year is South Carolina.
I would agree with you. I really saw some teams that really perplexed me. We'll get into those here in a few minutes. But so when I look to see what teams really performed very well, I think that you got to go to South Carolina again. You can never throw out games, but the two turd bowls that Kentucky put on with the teams in orange, inexplicable. You take those two games out, and then you have losses at A&M, at LSU, at Vandy. Hey, that's very understandable. Those
it's tough to run on the road in conference.
And this Kentucky team wasn't last year's Kentucky team, so you had to figure that they would lose those types of games on the road. But the two, you could even see them losing at South Carolina as good as they were, but they dominated South Carolina in Columbia. They dominated Florida down in Gainesville, which you would have expected those two games to be tough. I really expect I mean, the Cats in the past have really played poorly down in Fayetteville, and they manhandled Arkansas as well.
Yeah.
So they really, outside of the 3 losses that you say they should have had, they held serve at home, but those two losses to Auburn and Tennessee are just inexplicable. That's all I can say. So I would have said that I think that Kentucky did a great job this year, with the exception of those 2 games. And again, in their non-conference, they did the same thing.
Yeah.
So we'll stay away from that. But anyway, so I do believe that, it was fun to watch South Carolina. Another team that was fun to watch from time to time was Georgia. Georgia really played some good games.
Yeah.
Every team played some good games.
Probably with the exception of probably Missouri.
Missouri. And again, we don't have them listed here because of NCAA ban. So fully understand, and even Missouri jumped up and bit a couple people, not just at home, but on the road. So I think they manhandled South Carolina in Columbia, which just makes no sense whatsoever.
Yeah, it definitely does not.
So I'd really like to see Missouri get back to where they were prior to joining the SEC. Since they've joined the SEC, they've just been a big disappointment as a whole.
And we're in Kansas City, so we know the fans really want to have a great basketball team. They're just as frustrated as we're just frustrated because we like to have another good basketball team Kentucky can play. Man, it just makes the conference better. Yeah.
When you go to the arena in Columbia and half the crowd's Kentucky crowd, it's just a sad state of affairs for the Tigers.
Yeah, exactly. With that being said, there's a few choices for most disappointing team. You've got Missouri, who didn't really have much of a team, but there weren't really that big of expectations coming into the year. You could say maybe Tennessee, new coach. You could say Vanderbilt had some pretty high expectations. The number 1 player in the country. Plus, they've got some other good guys on that team that came in. Some really good freshmen. I mean, I don't know about you, but for me, LSU is my most disappointing team this year in the SEC because they've got all the pieces. Or at least they've got 3. One of the radio shows that I listen to, Kentucky Sports Radio, they talk about you have to have 3 good guys. If you have 3 good players, you should be able to beat just about anybody. And they've got 3 good players between Blakeney. They had Hornsby, but he got hurt. Right. But then you've got the number 1 player in the country, Ben Simmons, and that dude puts up like 30 points a game. I mean, he's averaging almost 20 points a game.
Of which 25 is from the foul line. Yeah, that's just the way he plays.
Yeah.
And then Quarterman was either on or off.
Yeah.
I think the games where they really excelled, Quarterman was there in spades. And when they lost, Quarterman was kind of ho-hum.
Just there.
Yeah. So I'll disagree with this. My most disappointing team was Vanderbilt. They were preseason top 10 with a lot of people.
Oh, yeah.
Damian Jones being a stud in the middle. Riley LeChance coming back, and he hadn't found the broadside of a barn with both hands.
No.
And, it's just really disappointing. And who's the other guard?
Cornette.
Cornette and then Baldwin.
Yeah.
When you look at that team,
they've got
that team is loaded.
Yeah.
And, I just think that, unfortunately, I think that Kevin Stallings is a good coach. He's not a great coach.
Yeah.
And again, I'll go back to your LSU comment. I understand why you're disappointed, but I don't think I could have had any good vibes coming from them to begin with. Johnny Jones may be the worst coach in the SEC, and that's just fact of the matter. Yeah. He has done the least with the most.
Exactly. So, and that's why they're my pick because that team on paper should have been fantastic, but coaching wise, it just wasn't there. They lost to some bad teams in the SEC. They lost some home games they shouldn't have. that team should not be 18-13 right now.
Yeah.
That team should be at least a 23 win team right now.
No doubt. But by the same token, Vandy should
Mm-hmm.
not be outside of the top 4
Oh, yeah.
in our seeds. And that just they've got too much talent.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah, they really hit a rough patch for a while. I mean, injuries, but yeah, they for whatever reason they just weren't clicking.
I've been very happy with the way the SEC has gone out and tried to really upgrade their coaches, bringing
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Pearl back, bringing Ben Howland into the league. Billy Kennedy and Rick Stansfield being Stansbury, excuse me, being a number 1 assistant.
Mm-hmm.
Those teams have really upped their coaching staffs, and I think because of that, you brought more talent in.
Mm-hmm.
Avery Johnson coming into Bama. I really believe that the SEC is in the process of trying to upgrade. Probably my biggest disappointment is the fan bases.
Yeah,
You just can't have half full arenas except for one game of the year.
yeah,
You just can't do that. You have to have that there's fan bases there night in, night out, whether it's Vandy playing South Carolina
mm-hmm.
or it's LSU playing Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
Those arenas have to be full. And I'm really disappointed in the SEC basketball bases. And again, it's going to take some time to rebuild. But the passion's there when you look at football.
Mm-hmm.
The passion's there. So you just want the fan bases to be as supportive to basketball as they are for football.
Yeah, and along that same point, you look at some of the teams that have been great, and even the last 5-10 years,
Mm-hmm.
Like your Tennessees when
Right.
Bruce Pearl was there.
Yeah.
You got Missouri when they were rolling.
How about the O-Dome?
Yeah, exactly. Florida. I mean, just up until they were still. When Florida was great. I mean, those places were packed. Yes, the SEC is a football conference,
Right.
First, but outside of Kentucky, there are a lot of great basketball schools in this conference,
Mm-hmm.
and it is really disappointing to see. The only time that the fans really show up was just for that
Right.
Kentucky game.
Right. That's kind of my point. So
Yeah.
if there's a big disappointment out there for me, it's the SEC fan.
Yeah, no, it's fair enough. So most disappointing team, like I said, mine's LSU, yours is Vanderbilt. So that's and fans, please show up because it's a lot more fun when you're there every time.
And I'll throw one more in there. What most disappointing team? Hey, you got to throw Kentucky in there.
Yeah.
They've like I said, they've laid 2 eggs,
Mm-hmm.
and did everything else, but those 2 eggs are just inexplicable and very disappointing. And then even when you look outside of the SEC and with the losses to a very poor Ohio State team, you look at a loss to UCLA. Those teams are going nowhere, and by the same token, once again, I think Cal has done a good job putting the pieces of the puzzle together late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody really wants to play them right now.
Oh yeah.
Today was the first day that the entire team was healthy again, and it showed against LSU.
Yeah.
I don't think LSU played poorly. Kentucky shot the ball well. And played very, very good defense, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, I totally agree. And speaking of teams, let's give our first team All-SEC awards right now.
Okay.
So, your 5 players you're going to have on the All-SEC team: 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center.
Sure.
I'll let you go ahead and go first.
Boy, I haven't given this a lot of thought, but from a guard standpoint. You got to feel good about Ulyss, and I'd even, I think that he's going to lead the guard ballot no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
The kid down at Bama is Abasama. Him. And then of course Stefan Moody is a very, very good point guard. the one A&M guard. Shit, I'm going to draw blanks on names, but but certainly I'd put I'd put Ulis and Moody right up top from a guard standpoint. You go to the forward spot. You got to go obviously with Ben Simmons. I would also throw Daniel House in there, and then from a center standpoint, even though he started kind of weak, but he's really come down the stretch here, and that's the kid from Vandy.
Cornette?
No. Damian Jones.
Damian Jones, yeah.
I'd throw him in there as probably the center for the All SEC team.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's the two Kentucky guards, Ulis and Murray.
Yeah.
I mean, Tyler Ulis is the pure point guard, the most pure point guard I've ever seen. The way his court vision is unbelievable, and I don't want anybody else leading my team except for Tyler Ulis.
Sure.
Jamal Murray has been on fire lately, and he's we've seen it lately. He's taking less shots now than he was at the beginning of the season, and he's playing defense a little bit better than he was.
I was watching the game today, and he really was buying in on the defensive end, where he was. I saw it several times. His man was in the corner. He sloughed off to help, and when it was kicked out to the man in the corner, he was on that guy instantly.
Yeah.
And even 10 games ago, he would have just he would have made a half-hearted effort to get out there. So I give him a lot of credit for changing his game. His game from the first 10 games of the season to the last 10 games of the season are night and day. Yes, he's always been a scorer.
Yeah.
But you look at how he's taking his shots, where he's taking his shots. He's early on, I would have called him somewhat selfish, but here down the stretch, it's nothing but team first.
Yeah, certainly. And for the forwards, I think Ben Simmons definitely deserves that accolade. He is the best in the conference. As far as that position goes. The other forward, I think I'd have to go with. I don't know who I would put in that other forward position. I'd probably say, the kid from Texas A&M.
House or
not House. Why can't I think of his name? Sorry, I can't think of his name.
We don't get a lot of exposure.
I know. I'm sorry, but no, it's around the tip of my tongue. I just can't think of it. Yeah, it'll just come to me. But center wise, I think House definitely is right there. That's all SEC. There's a lot of great individual players. Just spread throughout the conference.
No doubt.
Yeah.
I understand.
And then SEC MVP. I really would like to say Ben Simmons because he is the most valuable player. Without Ben Simmons on that team, they probably don't even win half their games this year.
By the same token, I would have said Ben Simmons through the first 10 games of the SEC. But as we've seen Ulis here the last 10 games of the year, and he was consistent even before that. Yeah. But he has stepped up so much in the last half of the season and added so much to so many people. Things that go unnoticed from the casual fan. It's Tyler Ulis going to the coach and saying, "Hey, we need to change what Scal's doing, and we need to let him be a face-up shooter rather than back to the basket. We need to start him. Yeah. Coach, I want him to start. We need to get his confidence." Yeah. It's little things like that. I think that really separate the ordinary from the extraordinary, and that is the basketball IQ is just off the charts. I believe that Ben Simmons has that basketball IQ as well, but his demeanor, especially with the rest of the team, you know, I've watched enough of their games, and maybe the LSU fans will disagree with me, but there was only one game where I saw him really have any vocal leadership in a game. If you watch an LSU game and watch him communicate with the rest of his teammates, it's almost non-existent.
Yeah, it really does seem like he is just, hey, I'm here for a year and then I'm gone. And
correct.
You guys do whatever. I'll be here. I'm out of here.
And the rumor mill as far as why he had to sit the game, the first half or the first 10 minutes of the game about 2 weeks ago, I think that is really disturbing in that, hey, Johnny Jones sat him because he wasn't going to classes.
Yeah,
I'm sorry. That's part of it. You know, I'll go back to Cal's first team at Kentucky when Daniel Orton just went through the motions, and as soon as the season was over, he backed in classes.
Yeah,
I mean it's inexcusable. You can't do that. Yeah. So you have an opportunity to better yourself. You take that opportunity.
Yeah.
And so I really like to see the young men take the opportunity.
Yeah. I totally agree with you. But yeah, like I said, I wanted to give it to Ben Simmons, but I my vote is for Tyler Ulis.
Sure.
Kentucky is not even the team that they are without him.
No doubt.
If you take him off of that team, they are completely different. They probably don't even scratch, you know, maybe not even 5, but this is probably an NIT year for them.
Right. Right. And, you know, I think for Kentucky, you probably would have had Isaiah Briscoe at the point guard. And I do believe that Isaiah is one of the best penetrators since
Archie Goodwin.
And unfortunately, you know, the tactic with Archie was just let him drive and fall to the ground. And Briscoe has a lot of that in him, but he can drive and you can foul him, and you're going to be just as well off. So anyway, that's you know, that's why they would have struggled all year for that same point. I will say this: watching SEC, we've seen a lot of great point guards over the years.
Yeah.
The list is long and plentiful. I go back to the best point guard at Kentucky I've seen is Kyle Macy. And again, it's not the numbers that he put up, but it was just the general leadership on the court. And that's what the great point guards do. They do a lot of things that go unnoticed, and the next thing you know, your team's winning because of it.
Yeah. Yep.
So
definitely. Anyway. So that's all of our regular season conference awards. Let's get to, you know, the real meat and potatoes here real quick. We talked about at the beginning what the bracket, kind of how the bracket broke down for the SEC tournament. Going through things, how do you see things playing out? That first game on Wednesday night, you've got Tennessee and Auburn. You know, that's going to be a real rough game to watch. You know, if last year taught us anything, though, I mean, don't count Bruce Pearl out once you get into a win or go home situation. And I want to take Auburn on that first game.
You know, and I all agree with you. And I'll say this: after that game, Auburn versus Vandy, I think Bruce Pearl, the only other team that Bruce Pearl really gets a kick out of beating, other than Kentucky, is Vanderbilt, the in-state rival, and that would set up a really interesting second round where you have Vandy trying to put everything together all of a sudden, playing a Bruce Pearl team. You know, Vandy could be sleeping on that game, and I just you hate to sleep on Bruce Pearl when it comes to this tournament.
Yeah, and that's going to be, I mean, I don't want to say it's a must-win, but it's got to be a must-win for Vanderbilt at that point, because if they lose first round or, you know, second round in the SEC tournament, their first game of the SEC tournament, you know, they're kind of a bubble team right now, so that they definitely have to get that win if they want to get to the NCAA tournament.
And again, that game, Vandy has to win that game, and you know, it should be a home game for them, right?
It should be. I mean, in
It's
Nashville,
they're 4 miles away
Mhm.
from their campus.
Yep. And the Kentucky fans won't be there that day, or at least
Correct.
if they are, it's going to be
Yeah.
half of them, if that.
Yeah. But the Vandy fans historically have not come out to the tournament, and that's kind of a tweet to you Vandy fans if you're out there. Hey, support your team. They're right there in town. Why wouldn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
So
you get tickets off all the Kentucky fans that are in town cheap. They don't want to go. They just want to have fun.
Yep, no doubt. No doubt.
So Wednesday night, I think we both have Auburn
Yep.
winning that game. So you move on to Thursday, and then you've got the 8 versus the 9, Florida against Arkansas.
Mm-hmm.
Arkansas has kind of been a disappointing team this year.
Yes,
They certainly underachieved. I was a little surprised. So many, not many teams ever win in Fayetteville, and there were. I won't say there were quite a few, but there were more than normal that won down there.
They just did not. They did not use
40 minutes of hell.
the 40 minutes of hell, the Hog Arena to their advantage this year.
Yeah, so I think that's an interesting matchup. I mean, it really is kind of one or the other, just a pick 'em, if you will. I mean, I think Florida's gonna want to win.
Florida certainly has the talent.
Yeah, Florida definitely has the talent. I just don't know. It really is a pick 'em. I think Florida goes on, but
I'll take Florida. Yeah. Just because Arkansas is that bad.
Yeah. And then, Vanderbilt against Auburn. I think, like we both said, I think Auburn
wouldn't sleep on them.
Yeah, wouldn't sleep on them. It's a must-win for Vandy. I think Kevin Stallings can get it done, though, and move on.
Yeah.
And he's done really well in the SEC tournament.
I just see it as a trap game for Vandy, but they should win.
Yeah, certainly. Then moving on in the afternoon session or the evening session, you've got Ole Miss against Alabama, the 7 versus the 10. Yeah, I kind of think Alabama can take that one. I don't think they're quite, like I said, they are the 10 seed just based on their record, but I think they're a better team than Ole Miss is right now.
I would agree. I've seen them have some very good games this year. They beat some very good teams out there. That's another team that had kind of a lull early, had a good middle, really felt like they were gaining momentum. And then as we wound down the season, had some bad losses again. And I really don't like to see kids kind of give up late in the year. It's a very, very athletic team. I'd like to see them come to play. I do think that they will. I'll put Bama in that game.
Yeah. And then the final game of Thursday night is Georgia, the 6th, against Mississippi State, the 11th seed. Like we were talking about earlier, I think Mississippi State's playing well at the right time of the year. And, if they want to make it to the NCAA tournament, they've got to win. Of course, Georgia's the same way.
Right.
Neither one of them are getting in unless they win the tournament.
Yeah.
Personally, I think Georgia's going to take this one, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if Mississippi State can just jump up and steal a game from them.
I'll pick Mississippi State in this game. I think that they've played better down the stretch.
Mm-hmm.
Ben Howland's a good quality coach. Like I said earlier, Mark Fox is a good quality coach as well. Typically does fairly well in the SEC tournament. I just think that Mississippi State actually has a little bit more talent, and Ben Howland is finally putting them together. I'll take Mississippi State here.
Okay. So that moves us to the quarterfinals on Friday. So for our first matchup, we'll have the number 1 seed Texas A&M probably taking on Florida, based on our little projections. I think A&M takes this game. It depends on how many of the Florida contingent show up. I think there'll probably be – there's generally Florida fans there in decent numbers, but this year I just don't know.
No, I don't see Florida even showing up.
At the same time, I don't know how well A&M's going to travel because last year they didn't really have a particularly great team.
Right.
I didn't see a whole bunch of them.
I think that they'll bring their yell leaders and they'll have a decent turnout, not a great turnout. But no, I think that A&M wins this game, no problem whatsoever.
Okay. I think A&M wins this game too. They're just a better team than Florida or Arkansas. Then that brings us to a really intriguing game: LSU against Vanderbilt. LSU, like I said, I think they've got to win to get into the tournament. Vanderbilt's got to if they make it to that game, they're probably safe. But a win against LSU, who's another bubble team,
Right.
probably helps them out a lot more. And LSU, like I said, LSU, it's pretty much winner, hello NIT for them.
Right. And I'll take Vanderbilt here.
Yeah,
I think that their guard plays better. I think that they're overall they play a better team game.
Mm-hmm. I think defensively they could shut LSU down.
Right, and I'll agree with that. So I'm going to go with Vandy in this game as the first upset versus one of the seeds.
Okay. Then moving on, you've probably got Alabama against Kentucky,
Right.
The number 2 seed. And I think, when they played the first time, Kentucky, kind of wiped the floor with them.
Right.
I think, it's going to basically be a home game for Kentucky. Kentucky will probably once again wipe the floor with them. But I wouldn't be surprised to see it being a little closer than it was the first time around.
Yeah, I don't know. I think Kentucky just has some bad matchups for Bama. Neither game did Bama play good defense against Kentucky, and I think the Cats probably I will say walk away with the game. Cal has a way of throttling the players back a little bit when it comes to tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, he's not going to have them push quite as hard.
Yeah.
And I think that they will beat Bama, but I think it'll be a closer game than the other two.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it's tough to win 3 games in 3 days.
Sure. Yep.
And then the final game of Friday night is going to be South Carolina against the winner of Georgia, Mississippi State. You think it's going to be Mississippi State. I think it's going to be Georgia. Either one of those, I wouldn't be surprised to see the lower seed upset South Carolina. I think South Carolina is playing well. I think they're comfortably in the tournament right now.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have to get a win. But I think Frank Martin, they dropped their final game against Georgia on Wednesday night.
Right.
I think they won, or was it Thursday night?
Thursday night.
Yeah, Thursday night.
Right.
So I think he's going to want to get a win,
Yeah.
just so they don't have a 2-game losing streak going into the NCAA tournament.
Right.
Especially to a team that won't make the field.
Right.
So I think South Carolina pulls the win here, but I wouldn't be surprised to see a very close game.
Yeah, I'll agree. I think that there's going to be a close game, but I do see Frank Martin being the better coach here and pulling it out.
Yep. And so that gets us to the semifinals on Saturday. So if brackets hold to what we're kind of saying, we will most likely have Texas A&M versus Vanderbilt.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be an intriguing matchup. They just played today.
Correct.
And A&M wiped the floor with them at home.
Right.
It was a close game in the first half, but they pulled away down the end. And it was a 15, 20-point game at the end.
Vandy had some foul trouble in that game, and that really hurt them.
Mm-hmm.
What will the officiating be like in that game? I'll go for the upset and go with Vandy there, just because I think that they're rounding into a better team here down the stretch. They know their back's up against the wall. Let's hope that Vandy fans show up, and it'll be interesting to see what the rest of the fans around the SEC, whether they're rooting for Vandy or pulling for A&M.
Yeah, I think Vandy comes away with this game too. I think you're right. They are playing a better team game right now. They're certainly a lot closer to what we thought they would be at the beginning of the year,
certainly,
than they were in the middle of it.
Right.
So I think they can definitely give A&M some trouble. Plus, they've got that loss fresh in their minds.
Mm-hmm.
They've got a home. They will have closest they're going to have to a home court game here.
Yep.
With it being in Nashville, although it's going to be all Kentucky fans. So who knows which team they're pulling for? Probably A&M because they want to get revenge, but I don't know.
There's no love lost with the Vandy fans. Let's face it.
No. So we'll see it, but I think Vanderbilt pulls this one too. Moving on to the other semifinal game, Kentucky against South Carolina. Kentucky, somewhat a surprise to me, handled South Carolina pretty well down at South Carolina.
Yeah.
And I just, it's going to be another home game for Kentucky. I don't see them having a problem with South Carolina. There's no particular matchup with them that really strikes fear.
I'll give South Carolina credit. Korea is he's a stud. He can put a team on his back, and make a deep run.
Mm-hmm.
He's the type of guy that could give Kentucky bigs
Yeah.
some trouble and get him into foul trouble.
Yeah, I think he was the only guy in that first game that actually scored 20, 25 points.
Right. So I don't think Kentucky has a problem with him. But I will say that Korea is a guy that, if all of a sudden you blink your eyes and Marcus Lee and Poitras have foul trouble because he's faked them up in the air and ducked right into him a couple times.
Yeah,
that's a whole different ballgame.
Yep. So, yeah. Foul trouble. Kentucky doesn't have a very deep bench down low, so they could certainly run into foul problems.
Sure.
With a team like that.
Would agree.
So that brings us to the final on Sunday. Probably going to see Vanderbilt against Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
The way Kentucky's playing, I don't want to bet against them, but I know Cal's. They get to that game, their seat's probably set anyway.
No doubt.
There's going to be Kentucky fans there. I don't think Cal's going to not want to win, but I think he's going to try to save something for the tournament. So
no doubt.
I wouldn't be surprised to see Vandy win, but I think Kentucky probably is still the better team unless Vanderbilt's lights out.
No doubt. I mean, you get into one of those games and it's a winner take all, and all of a sudden you get a couple of the Vandy guards lighting them up,
mm-hmm.
and it can be a winner for them.
Yeah.
So from that standpoint, I don't have a strong feeling one way or another. Certainly, I think Kentucky has the most talent. I think that they have the best coach. But you still have to show up and play the game.
Yep.
And you never know when you're going to have that one-off day, and that's it.
Yep.
The good part is that for Kentucky or A&M or South Carolina, that last game is not win or go home.
Yeah.
They will have another game to play. So you can still lose on, what would that be, March 13th,
mm-hmm.
and still live to play.
Oh, yeah.
And that's, we've seen a lot of teams lose on that Sunday and then come right back and have a nice run through the NCAAs.
Yeah.
So
overall, I think we're both in agreement. We think Kentucky can win this whole thing, should win this whole thing. But any one of those teams we mentioned, A&M, Vanderbilt, South Carolina, could certainly walk away with it if everything falls right.
I would agree wholeheartedly.
Yeah. So with that being said, that's kind of everything. We're going to try to wrap it up here real quick. One last thing I want to just talk about. We'll kind of skip question and answers right now. Of all the teams that are in the SEC, what one team would you say can improve their seeding or make it into the tournament the most out of the SEC tournament of all the teams in the field?
Of all the teams in the field, I really do believe that Vandy has the most to gain. If they could have a deep run, you could the tournament selection committee could say, hey, they're finally playing up to what they where they should be. Certainly could get into a 6-7 type seed, but as of right now, they're probably a 9-10 type of seed. And again, that's good. When you get into the NCAAs, like I said earlier, Vandy doesn't have the greatest NCAA record, but they certainly have the makeup of a team that can make a big run.
Yeah.
But they just historically have been a disappointment.
Yeah, certainly. I'm going to kind of go a little bit different. I'm going to say, I want to say it's LSU. I think they're not in the tournament now. Getting two to three wins. I mean, 2 wins. Well, 2 wins puts them in the championships. Right. I think if they get to the championships, I think they're in. They're going to be like one of those playing games on that Tuesday night.
Right.
But they're in at that point. Otherwise, they're out, and Ben Simmons gets to be the first player for the Power Conference.
Yeah,
the number 1 pick that's not in the NCAA tournament.
Right. Would agree with that.
So,
What a disappointment.
Yeah. So, I think they've got the most to play for in this thing, and it'll be interesting to see how they do once because when they played really good teams outside of Baton Rouge or not Baton Rouge.
Yeah.
Baton Rouge. They haven't shown up.
I would agree.
So, anyway, thank you all for watching. If you have any questions, feel free to post them on the comments section. We're gonna post this up here as soon as we're done. Anyway, I'm Kevin Augsburger, aka Jack Burton. This is my dad, John.
Go Cats.
Go Cats. Thank you guys for watching, and have a good one. Go Big Blue.